You're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
Don't be a smart.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a Christian or you're not.
The Hindenburg called, and it would like an apology from everyone who called it a disaster. Jordan Peterson, surrounded by 20 atheists, originally billed as one Christian, 20 atheists. But Jordan Peterson, post-filming, said, no, let's change that because it appears that he didn't want to identify himself as a Christian, as one young man revealed.
You're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smart.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a Christian or you're not.
I won't talk to you if you're a smart.
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
Anybody else thinking about a Bible verse right now? I don't know what's going on inside of his heart. I don't know why he chose to be coy about his religious identification. But I do know that Jesus said, if you're ashamed of me before men, I'll be ashamed of you before my Father in heaven. That is a scary sentence that may or may not apply to Jordan Peterson, who went about the business of trying to defend whatever his worldview is in front of 20 atheists. And I have to tell you, it was nothing short of a disaster.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing.
This is a mindset issue. And I think that this could be something that we all take away from eavesdropping on this conversation that Jordan Peterson had with 20 atheists. And that is the heart of an apologist versus the heart of an evangelist. Mm-hmm. An apologist wants to be well prepared and thinking very intensely about what the person is asking, to give the smartest answer possible to perhaps persuade them intellectually that Christianity is a good thing. The heart of the evangelist is, you need to hear something. God exists. This is his character and nature. This is your character and nature. My friend, you are in danger deep. You're going to have to face this God. Would you like to know how you can escape the wrath that is to come? That's the heart of an evangelist. And when you are in these conversations, if you're just sitting and trying to figure out how do I give the best apologetical answer, you're going to sound like Jordan Peterson. But instead, if you're listening for opportunities to press in and present the gospel, well, then you're going to be an evangelist. And that's what we're all called to be. Jordan Peterson, who knows where he's at? Apparently he's attending a Catholic church because his wife became a Roman Catholic, but it appears his ability to articulate in classic terms, in biblical terms, who God is and what Christianity is about, to compare this to classic apologetics. Classic apologetics is always being ready to give a reason for the hope that lies within you. When people ask questions, I can tell you about the Bible. I can tell you why it's reliable. I can explain the miracles, etc. And I can give you archaeological evidence. I can defend the faith. That's classical apologetics. Jordan Peterson is doing his own version. And while I know the comparison isn't entirely fair, ask yourself the question, would anybody get saved from this form of apologetics? And I think the answer to that question is no. Why? On the one hand, you've got the gospel. Jesus died for sinners. God is holy, righteous, just. You're not. Therefore, he must punish you unless your court case is dismissed by one who pays your fine. And that, of course, is Jesus Christ. So if you'll repent, put your trust in him, your sins will be forgiven. You'll be justified. You'll be adopted. One day you'll be glorified. That's the gospel. There it is in my right hand. On the left hand, you've got apologetics, archaeological evidence, textual criticism. Those are all apologetics. Now, question, can people get saved merely from hearing what's in the right hand? Yes. Can people get saved from merely hearing what's in the left hand? And the answer is no, because you haven't explained the gospel. Do we ever practice apologetics? The answer to that question is, of course, we should practice apologetics. We should be ready to give a reason for the hope that lies within us. But it is worth noting that Paul did not approach people to apologize for the faith. Okay, everybody, go ahead, take a shot. I'm going to be ready to explain to you from the Old Testament or archaeological evidence that Jesus is God. He didn't do that. Instead, he dialegomied. The word it's to talk through. It's to move somebody from point A to point B. In other words, it's to persuade. Apologetics leans back. Okay, hit me with your best shot. But presenting the gospel leans in. Let me tell you about salvation through Jesus Christ. Jordan Peterson is, if you will, an apologist. And his version of apologetics, it was loaded with ambiguity, shrouded with large words that would confuse just about anybody. And I think that even his tenor sometimes was, well, just not what it should be.
So God says that you can own people as property. He says that you can beat them with a rod too. He commands genocide in Deuteronomy, in Numbers, and in Samuel. I mean, they have a baby barbecue in Numbers. Like, is all of this in line with Christian ethics?
Okay, here comes the laundry list of grievances against God. This is one of those times where it's like, I want to be able to explain it, but I want to let you put God on trial. Hey, what about slavery? Hey, what about genocide? Hey, what about... These things, by the way, are all easy to answer if you understand the character and the nature of God. And that is what I would do with this young man. Explain to him justice. That he likes justice. Well, where does that come from? It's a reflection of God's justice system, where he demands that people live by his laws. And when they break them, he must punish them. And it is his right as the author, the creator of all things, the owner of a cattle on 1,000 hills, to give life, to take life away. And he can do that whenever he chooses. And he can do whatever he wants because it pleases him, because he's the owner of stuff. And this owner is just. And so when people like the Canaanites, who were sacrificing babies for 400 years, was then wiped out at the command of God to the nation of Israel, which would soon be the nation of Israel, to wipe them out, that was well within his prerogative. He has every right to do that. Why? Because they're lawbreakers. They're criminals. And God can determine who gets the death penalty and when. Let's see how Jordan does.
Is all of this in line with Christian ethics?
No.
So then God doesn't fit within Christian ethics.
Oh, see, when you try to intellectualize Christianity and make it palatable so that people don't think God is a great big cosmic meanie, you're going to sound like Jordan. We don't need to apologize for God. Yeah, we can use apologetics, but we're not going to apologize. God can dictate everybody's first and last breath because he's the sustainer of life. And if he chooses to say, I'm taking it back, he has every right to do that. Furthermore, when you've got a group of people who are having a baby barbecue, I would ask Ian, do you think that those people should have been rewarded for their behavior? Should there be any justice for them? Should God let them live forever on the planet? That's how I might respond to Ian.
The biblical library is a continuing story, and everything written in it has to be contextualized by the entire text.
Oh, hey, God was kind of, all right, back then, it was a little different, and God, a little on the crabby side, but that's in that context. The Bible progressives. This is almost like a trajectory hermeneutic. This is God getting better as he goes. That is not the way to defend the Christian faith.
There's 65,000 hyperlinks in the biblical text. And you can take pieces of it out of context and criticize them, and that's what you're doing.
No, actually, he's doing okay. He's using it as a cudgel to try to bludgeon the Christian faith, but he's not taking it necessarily out of context. He's lacking in a bigger context. Why would God do this? Why did God write rules about slavery? Why did God determine those people can't live in the land? For instance, he could have invoked the Abrahamic covenant to explain this nation is to be a set-aside people, a royal priesthood, chosen by God himself, delivered from Egypt so that they would occupy a land and be peculiar and different for at least two reasons. Number one, so that God would bless them in the quid pro quo covenant of Moses, so that the nations would see their light shining and be attracted to it and say, who's your God? who blesses you so much. In other words, Israel would be a light to lighten the Gentiles. Second, it would be the place out of which the promised Messiah came in the Abrahamic covenant, threefold: land, nation, seed. The seed is the head crusher promised in Genesis 3:15. Jesus is coming, and he's going to come out of a set-aside people in this zip code in fulfillment of all of the prophecies that God gave. That provides, I think, the context for explaining why God would say these people can't live in the land. I've got greater purposes for it. And he's not, he can take whoever you think is the most sanctified person on the planet. Whoever's like, you think, oh, they probably never sin. Well, they do. And God would have every right to take their life. And if we don't start explaining the character and the nature of God, what it is that he is doing in the Old Testament, providing that context, then a guy like Ian's going to mop the floor with you, which I fear he did with Jordan Peterson.
That's a mistake, I think. It's an analytic mistake because you're putting the cart before the horse.
We're not going to be a speed bag for atheists. We don't have to be. In fact, it doesn't help them. And I'm not talking about becoming aggressively offensive, but I am saying, let me ask you, Ian, my atheist friend, God is perfect, righteous, holy, just. He is totally pure light. When he sees darkness, wickedness, depravity, violation, willing violation of his laws, should that God just say, oh, well, I'm going to let them burn their babies on the scalding arms of Moloch because I'm nice? Is that what you think is right, Ian? Of course not. It is because God is so just and so holy and so righteous. He has not only the right, but in a sense, I don't want to use the word responsibility isn't ideal because he's not beholden to anything, but it is because of his nature and his character that justice is demanded. Furthermore, Ian, you need to understand, you're going to be one who is going to have to give an account to God too. And he's going to take your life. You're not going to escape what nobody else has escaped, and that is death. What are you going to do when you face a perfectly holy God on Judgment Day? That's to press in, not to reel back as Ian pounds you with one biblical outrage after the next.
I feel like Christian ethics, like this is kind of, I guess I just think it's like kind of an absurdity to say that God doesn't fit within Christian ethics, but sure, well, we can go on my ethics. That's totally fine.
I don't know what you mean by an absurdity. What game are you playing with?
Well, I just think that it's an absurdity to say that the Christian God doesn't fit within Christian ethics, that like the Christian God isn't like that. Christian.
I noticed something else about what Jordan was attempting to do, to trip them up in their questions, to force them to drill down. And sometimes I think that is a wise practice. What do you mean by that? That's a helpful question, but I think he was trying to do that as a defensive mechanism. And I think the reason is the poor fellow was out of his depth. He was a speed bag for 20 atheists. And his ability, perhaps the most tragic moment of all, is when he couldn't answer the question, what does it mean to be a Christian? That is the fundamental question. And we should all be prepared to answer that question. But might I suggest we stop doing it in a posture of leaning back, reeling? Oh, I know. Like, whoo, the Canaanites getting wiped out. Oh, and we press in and we proclaim the God of holiness who demands righteousness, who will not leave the lawbreaker unpunished. Enough. Defending God. Christianity for him is intriguing because it made the West great, and it's a narrative that's really beneficial to people, whether it's true or not. And so because he doesn't, I think, have a fundamental understanding of the Christian faith and believe it because it's absolutely true, I think he found himself in over his head, out of his depth. Same thing, Todd. I think there was something else that we can learn from Jordan Peterson. To stop letting people assault the Bible and Jesus Christ. You got to de-legitimize them. You've got to turn it around and say, now, wait a second. This is your accusation. Let's dive into that because this is what God is like. So now the onus is on you to explain why you disagree with the creator of the universe who has revealed himself to be omniscient, and then present the gospel. Now, Jordan never got to that. You'll hear that in a moment. He never was able to come close to that. He sort of thinks that Christianity apparently is just about getting to heaven. Well, in part, But that ain't the totality of what Christianity is. He was woefully inarticulate in those regards, but he was also lacking the most powerful thing that he could have presented to these atheists, and that is Bible verses. Rather than intellectualizing, rather than apologizing and defending, use the Bible, because that is what has the power of a two-edged sword. And he talked about a couple of Bible stories. He would talk about Moses and Elijah, but he never used the Bible as his source of authority.
You asked a deeper question with regard to, let's say, heaven and hell and judgment. Yeah. Well, that's a tough one, right? I mean, sin, you could put it this way, sin is what puts you in hell, right? And so then you might ask, well, how do you know you're in hell? How about you do anything to get out of it?
Sin needs to be defined as law breaking against God, otherwise hell is unreasonable. And this is a mistake that so many of us make regularly. We assume they know the word sin and its implications. I was just reading a Greg Koukl Stand to Reason article, and there were two words. One of them was faith, and I can't recall the second one, but he said, I'm persuaded that people don't know what that means. So when you say, I think it was faith and belief, that they don't really understand what that means. So you say to somebody, I believe in Jesus, and it's like, it just has no meaning to them. His encouragement was, I'm trusting this. I trust this. That seems to be a better way to articulate the meaning of faith and belief. And I think we need to remember that people don't know what these words mean. And they don't understand why sin is so exceedingly sinful. And again, where does this lead us? To the character and the nature of God. And if we take one thing away from this entire presentation of Jordan Peterson's experience with 20 atheists, determine this day, are you an apologist or are you an evangelist? Now, please note, an evangelist uses apologetics, but that's different than saying I'm an apologist. An evangelist wants to win people to the Lord and will use apologetics sparingly, but as needed. An apologist will simply try to reasonably respond to accusations against God and His Word. Which one are you? Determine that. It will make all the difference in the world in how you engage with 20 atheists that you know. Here's an offer I hope you can't refuse. Would you like to partner with us to reach more people with the gospel and with Bible-based resources? We have a plan to do just that, but we need your help. Our Truth Unhindered campaign, it's a matching gift campaign. Every dollar you give is matched dollar for dollar. What are we going to do with that? Number one, we're going to close our store. We already give away a ton of resources. We're going to give everything away. We just don't want money to be a hindrance to receiving these resources. Number two, we're going to market this like crazy to every English-speaking country on the globe. It's aggressive, and we think we're going to reach exponentially more people, but we need you to partner with us. Would you consider doing that? Join us on the Truth Unhindered campaign, fortisinstitute.org/donate.